My guess is that I am probably the only person who is probably not from academia, so I might be running the risk of preaching to the choir, but nevertheless. So briefly about me, I am actually leading the setup of a multidisciplinary university. So my interests span the commercial world and academia. I work at that intersection. I was a consultant with PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I had a number of experiences in education advisory and implementation. I'll just take a minute to speak briefly about the genesis of this paper. Uh, Primarily, the reasons are firstly my work in education over the past 3 to 4 years, both in consulting and implementation, including the setup of a university that I'm currently working on now. And also, I've had a number of discussions over the past 3 years. We did an extensive survey where I went and met almost 45 to 50 people from academia, and this paper resulted as a result of that. And also finally, my personal educational experiences where I had the opportunity to juxtapose India's education system with what we have outside India. So in terms of guiding principles, the primary focus of this paper is not on quantity. Why I mention this is that there is an overwhelming emphasis right now in India on how to improve the GER, how to improve the net enrollment ratio, so on and so forth. But along with quantity, there is also a severe problem with quality. Three symptoms of the quality problem: vacant seats and institutions. In spite of the fact that our GER is fairly low as compared to many nations, there are a number of vacant seats and there are a number of institutions that shut shop every year. There is low employability of graduates as per the feedback from employers. And also one interesting trend is employers are now stepping into that space, which they should, which is a good thing. But it's a fact that employers complain that the output coming out from our higher educational institutions is not up to the mark, and something needs to be done. So as a formal extension of that, they are increasingly teaming up with our higher educational institutions to have tailored courses that make people more job worthy in a shorter period of time. Further, the focus is not on quality control, which means, measuring, let's say, whether a classroom is 66 square meters or not, but more on quality assurance. Quality assurance, I think, is a broader concept. Quality control is a subset of quality assurance. So the paper that I have is primarily proposes a new framework. This is broadly the framework. I've called it the SMILE framework, if you will. Again, I run the risk of preaching to the choir. A lot of it might already be known to you coming from academia, but student development forms the core of this framework. We also talk about methods or pedagogical methods. We talk about instructors, which is a very important part of the entire higher education ecosystem. Levers or tools which are increasingly becoming necessary, a part of our life. And finally, the environment. So first we'll talk about student development. And many of you would probably be aware of this. This is Chickering's theory of identity development, which says that a student in a higher education system moves through 7 key vectors, right from developing competence, managing emotions, moving through autonomy towards interdependence, developing mature interpersonal relationships, establishing identity, developing purpose, and finally developing integrity. Now, anyone who is in this room who has seen 3 Idiots will recognize that we probably don't go beyond this. Higher order vectors such as developing purpose, developing integrity, the Indian education system does not really cater to that. And for those of my friends who are from outside India, I would suggest watching the movie 3 Idiots. It will probably teach you more about the Indian education system than than seminars like these. Moving on to methods, there is an increasing shift, and research has proven that a number of faculty, a number of academia in the developed world are now moving away from emphasizing teaching to facilitating learning. They're saying learning will happen on its own. We do not need to, we need to get out of the way of the student. We need to ensure that he has all the right tools, the right content, the right learning outcomes, so on and so forth. This morning, the plenary session, the inaugural session this morning, one of the senior personnel from the governments mentioned that online education will not replace face-to-face instruction, and we also had some discussion around that here. But let me just point out that as recently as 2008 and 2009, there is research which is showing that there is increasing evidence that online instruction will probably become the primary mode of instruction. This is not my opinion, but a number of research studies are coming up with innovative solutions which involve asynchronous learning, peer instruction, to come up with overall models that are better than actually face-to-face instruction. I'll just run through this slide. Some research-based quick wins, and more details are there in my paper. I'll request anyone to, encourage anyone to take a copy of that paper. But specifically teaching how to read for comprehension, we don't teach that in Indian higher educational institutions. Basic things like writing assignments as a tool to sharpen critical thinking and problem-solving skills, classroom experiments, designing interdisciplinary courses, which we are seeing now, designing and using alternative formats of instruction, including role-playing, simulation, so on and so forth. And finally, making time during lectures for synthesis and integration, which is important if that higher order vector of developing purpose and developing integrity has to come across. In terms of instructors, during my discussions, while I was doing my research for this paper, as sir mentioned, salary is the biggest pain point. So I took a conscious decision not to touch salary at this point of time. But what I wanted to say is that the key concern here is that, and this is this is something that is coming across in research time and again, that we still know very, very little about what constitutes a good teacher, what really goes into making a good teacher. And this is an area of research not just in India but throughout the world. We still don't know what levers, what buttons to push to get a good teacher. So having said that, we do know that I just chose one most significant finding which I felt was important based on my discussions with academia, that research has shown that professional development is a long-term process, which is very important, and Indian attitudes and policies towards professional development of instructors is probably one of the largest hindrances towards improvement of the higher education system in India. Just a few, I'll just run through this slide again, but what we do know from research, most of it in the Western world, but it's also applicable to India, is that training instructors to experiment with newer teaching methods is necessary. Having sufficiently stringent conditions for entry into teaching professions, integration of relevant research with teaching is being encouraged, and the need to have a mix of excellent researchers, teachers, and education experts in the faculty. Coming to levers, there are broadly three categories of levers, and I'll not talk too much about these. You have administrative tools which help in process and program management. You have those which deal with delivery of content. Again, online instruction makes its presence here, and the fact is that Harvard, Wharton, Stanford are all betting big time on online instruction as of now. The fact is that while online instruction might not replace teachers, the time is right for India to adopt whatever is coming out of the West in terms of delivery models for education.